This top 10 list is sponsored by Game Toppers. Game Toppers LLC has more than a few solutions that transform almost any normal table into a sturdy and portable gaming table without breaking the bank. Stop by GameToppersLLC.com for everything they currently have to offer you, from Game Toppers to playmats and more. Hey folks, welcome back to another top 10 list with yours truly, Sam Healy, right here on the Flipside. But this is her list, not mine. This is my wife, Jessie.
Hi.
And we're doing this, we usually talk about board games here on the Flipside, but every once in a while we do break out the pop culture, and you guys have been asking, some of you at least, have been asking for Jessie's top 10 books. I am not much of a reader. I can read, and I do read from time to time.
Reader than you think.
So this is going to be Jessie's top 10.
It is.
What do you think? Top 10 books. How hard was this list to make for you?
Not really very hard at all.
Yeah, she literally sat down and
I was like, okay,
I'm done.
And I'm like, oh, but my list is like 35.
Yeah.
So then I had to go down.
So most of the work was whittling it down to 10.
Yes.
So, but how difficult of a process was that?
Not so difficult. There are hard favorites.
How many times have you read each of these books?
That was one of my qualifiers.
Really?
I went for books that I have read over and over and over again.
So multiple times, not just twice.
Not just twice. 8, 9. So that was actually one of my qualifiers, because that to me says this is one of my favorite books because I've read it over and over and over again. So all the books on this list I have read multiple times.
How many times? Are you going to say that?
Some of them I don't even know.
You've lost count?
I don't know how many times I read them.
I guess I can't say anything because I've watched several movies over and over
Exactly.
and over again.
So when I was growing up, books were my friends. I lived on a cattle farm. We didn't have a lot of people around us. Mm-hmm. So books. Every week my mom would take me down to the public library and she would let me get as many books as I could carry. My mom is also a big reader. Mm-hmm. Some of my earliest memories, my mom sitting on the sofa reading her books. And then a lot of this list is interesting. Some are books that I read over and over and over as adults.
Really?
Not just throughout growing up, but over and over as adults. So that was one of my qualifiers. These books had to have been read at least 5 times each book.
At least 5 times.
At least.
Well, there you have it. All right. Here we go. Jessie's top 10 books of all time.
All time. My number 10 is, do you want a little lead up or do I just jump right into it?
No, just jump right in. Go ahead.
My number 10 is Charlotte's Web.
Charlotte's Web?
By E.B. White.
10?
10. Really? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I have read that so many times. I used to go out to my barn and look and hope that one of my spiders would write me a note.
What?
In the web.
Okay, you need to be connected with reality.
Oh, no. I'm telling you. I loved this book. I've read it, and I've read it as an adult. I read it multiple times as a kid. I reread it in college, and then I read it while I was in the Czech Republic as an adult. I've also listened to the Audible multiple times. Mm-hmm. I loved it. It was farm life.
Sure.
All the critters I have in my farm.
Which is what you grew up with.
I thought all my critters in my barn talked. It's just I had a very vivid imagination. I would go out and talk to the barn, and I would talk to the sheep, and I would talk to the cows, and I would talk to I never talked to the rats. And in fact, that's probably where one of my fears of rats came from, is Templeton the rat in Charlotte's Web.
I'm glad you said this because
it's the most terrifying rat ever.
I'm pretty sure even the nice spider was still super creepy to me.
Oh, really?
I do not like spiders at all. So you would have
hated the ending scene where all the baby spiders are floating?
Stop it. We're done. All right, number 9.
Number 9. My phone locked. Oh, another great one. Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne.
Yeah, this is a good one.
I have read this book more times than I can count. Mm-hmm. I've read it as a young girl. I've read it as a young adult. I've read it as an adult. I've read it to my preschoolers. I've read it in every class I've ever taught. I've read it to 3rd graders. Mm-hmm. I love this book. I love this book.
I think I identified with Winnie the Pooh when I was a kid.
You weren't short.
I didn't want to wear pants most of the time. And I was always kind of overweight.
Nah.
And I loved honey.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Some of the best life quotes come out of Winnie the Pooh.
Okay.
Like, really.
Hit us with some of them.
Any day spent with you is my favorite day.
Who said that?
Winnie the Pooh.
To who?
Christopher Robin.
Oh. That's cool.
After all, one can't complain. I have my friends. That was by Eeyore.
Eeyore said that?
Yeah.
Wow. He gets a bad rap, I guess.
No, Eeyore's great. The things that make me different are the things that make me me.
Who said that?
Piglet.
That makes sense.
A little consideration, a little thought for others makes all the difference.
Who said that?
Eeyore. Some of the smallest things take up the most room in your heart.
Who said that?
Pooh.
Another cool thing about Pooh is that I have a tie.
You do.
With Winnie the Pooh on it. And I wore it. Whenever I wear it, I say, oh man, I got Pooh on my tie.
My number 8 is very different than my other two. It's one that I first read as an adult. It's actually a series, and I've read the entire series over 5 times. This is A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
Oh, okay.
That specific series. She's written other series, which are also fantastic.
And here's a connection. There's a board game.
There is a board game. We have it. We've played it.
We've played it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Embers
Reese
of
and
Memory.
Tamlin and Lucian is like one of the... this love triangle that you just never know who it's going to end up with because I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
I bought her 2 Sarah J. Maas books in a...
Airport. On the way back from...
No, but it's in a series that's...
A Crescent City.
Connected.
Yes.
Connected
And
to
I've
this
only
one.
read book 1. I have to read book 2 and 3. But I've heard that in book 3 there is a crossover.
Book 1 is like this
It was
thick.
like 800 pages.
And we bought it on the way back from the cruise.
Yeah.
And she's already done with it.
Oh, I've been done with it for weeks.
Cannot read
I'm super
that.
excited because I've heard that in book 3 there is a crossover to A Court of Thorn and Roses in the book. And I'm...
Another connection is that one of the ladies that makes our coffee treat drinks in the mornings at Steamers West has also read the series, and it's one of her favorite series. And so they were getting all like, "Ee!" at our last game night about it. Number 7.
Number 7
Here we go.
is not a series, but it is multiple books written by the same author.
Uh-huh.
And it
Yeah, you kind of
starts
broke
with,
the rules here.
but because you can't choose one.
You're supposed to.
Whatever. This is, actually, one of the favorites is Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister by Gregory Maguire. But all the Gregory Maguire books. He's the one who wrote Wicked.
Can you say that?
Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister.
You can't do that. That's mean.
They're like twisted fairy tales.
Okay.
But they're not quite they're not twisted. They're just from a different perspective. In fact, you will know some of them have become big, huge Broadway things. Wicked was a Gregory Maguire book. Wicked.
Yeah, cool.
And then he wrote Son of a Witch and Escape from... He wrote like 4 others in that series of Wicked. But all of his original Twisted Tales, I loved. He wrote Hidden Sea and Mirror Mirror and, of course, Wicked. I've read Wicked so many times. When Wicked came out as a Broadway show...
So is this Wicked or is this something else?
I would say Wicked. But
Wicked
Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister was the first one that kind of hooked me in.
Okay, so your number 7 is what?
Wicked. We'll say Wicked. But all the Gregory Maguires.
Is that what you wrote down?
I wrote the Gregory Maguires.
Okay, so a whole series of books.
It's kind of a set.
Okay, so Confessions of a Ugly Stepsister is about Cinderella, I imagine.
Yes.
And Wicked
and it's from the stepsisters.
Sure.
The stupid brat comes in and...
Right.
you know...
So Wicked, though, is about... I don't know.
I love the fact that he doesn't know.
I have no idea.
Wicked is the tale of the Wicked Witch in Wizard of Oz.
Okay, so it's written from her
Elphaba.
perspective. For who?
Elphaba. That's her name.
Elphaba?
Elphaba.
Nobody needs to know her name. She's
you
bad...
know it. Everybody
she's
that's
a bad
watching this
person.
has seen Wicked.
She's the Wicked Witch.
No, but
period.
that's the point.
She's a bad person.
She's not.
What?
I'm telling you.
I don't like it.
In Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister, Cinderella's the one you hate. Oh, you hate her. Number 6.
You're number 6.
This is a standalone book. It's a single book, and it's called The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna.
The Great Alone.
The Great Alone.
That sounds super depressing.
Oh, it's so intriguing. So good. It is a book about a family in the early 70s who the father had just come back from the Vietnam War.
Uh-huh.
And they decide to homestead up in Alaska. He leaves everything, and he takes the girl and the kid, and they homestead up in Alaska.
I knew it had something to do with Alaska.
Holy.
Only because of the name, The Great Alone.
The adventures that this mother and the daughter and the father even have had are so crazy. The first time I read this book, I didn't put it down. I read the whole book in like 2 days. I didn't even I couldn't put it down. It was so good. It's called The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Not my traditional books, not my fantasy books, not my historical fiction or any of that. It just sucked me in. And I have lived in Alaska. We didn't homestead. I lived in Anchorage. We lived in an apartment. We lived in a house. Like, I wasn't a homesteader of Anchorage.
Right.
But I know that there are those people.
Yeah.
And there are still those people in Alaska. There's TV shows on TLC about them.
Out in the middle of nowhere.
You know, they live out in the middle of nowhere. That's what they do. Yeah. And this book was about that. And I know it was all fiction, but it felt like it was based on a true story.
Sure.
Like I was so
I think it's based
sucked
on
in.
a reality. I don't think it's totally.
No, it's not a specific person, but it's probably, well, you know, this could happen in Alaska and this could happen in Alaska. And I read it over and over and over. The first time I read it, like I said, I read it in a couple of days, and then I put it down, and I was like, I want to read it again.
Okay.
And I read it right again.
The
Great Alone.
Number 5.
Yes, number 5. Is one you have read.
Really?
Yes.
How do you know?
I do know. It is The Hobbit.
I have read this.
See?
I've actually read this one multiple times.
I have also. Look at you. See, you make fun of me for it.
Yeah, well, I the second time I skipped some parts. I was like, I ain't reading that again.
Oh, come on. He skips the parts that I love.
Riddles in the Dark is the best chapter.
Oh. I think the trolls, and they turn them to stone. I love that part. I loved that part.
Yeah. Have you read The Silmarillion?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't.
I've read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings trilogy, and The Silmarillion.
I haven't read. I haven't read The Silmarillion. That's the only one of those I haven't read.
I have. The Hobbit is one of my favorites. I've read it over and over. I felt really accomplished as a mother the first time I got to read it to my kids. I was like, this is great. Now they get to know what I love.
Number 4. Number 4. What is it?
Gone with the Wind. By Margaret Mitchell. Yep. Scarlett and Rhett and Ashley. Oh. And Melanie. Oh my gosh.
Who's Melanie?
Melanie's in the whole story. She's super important. She's actually married to Ashley, but you know.
Go ahead, keep going.
Melanie.
No spoilers now.
No, Melanie is a wholesome character in this book filled with people that are backstabbing.
Not wholesome.
Yeah, really. Rhett and Scarlett are so made for each other. And the fact that they go through this whole story and she's like, yeah, I like him, but I don't love him. And he loves her. He loves her. He dotes on her. And this whole book, she goes on and she's still pining over this crush she had when she was younger.
She's a homewrecker.
She wanted Ashley. Ashley.
Scarlett O'Hara is a homewrecker.
No, I mean, she stayed, well, she ended up with Rhett, but then finally she said, well, anyway, if you haven't read it, sorry, I can't spoil it. You haven't read it. You haven't even seen the movie. That's going to happen.
I have seen the movie.
You're fibbing.
I have seen parts of the movie. I couldn't make it through the whole thing. I was like, this is so boring.
The first time I read it, and I'm saying I've read these books multiple times.
Yeah.
The first time I read it, the fire in Atlanta, it's like terrified me.
Yeah, fire.
Terrified me. And the people trying to escape and the whole city burning and wow. It had such visuals in my head. Mm-hmm. And then the first time I saw the movie, it was one of the first movies that actually matched my visuals. It resonated the fear of that fire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Civil War story of Southern belles and love and unrequited love and houses and plantations falling. And I mean, all of it. It was historical fiction that just kind of opened my mind to, wow, books can tell stories about things that actually happened.
Yeah.
I loved it. Number 3, he's going to say it's a cheat because it's a series. But it's Harry Potter.
Okay, what's your favorite book of the series?
The first one.
Okay.
It hooks you in.
So, The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Nope. But nice try. Keep going. What do you got?
So it's the Harry Potter and the kitchen sink.
Yes, for sure.
That's the first one, right?
Mm-hmm. I love Harry Potter. I've read those series so many times. I've listened to the Audible alone. The entire series probably 4 times. The entire series on Audible.
They have multiple ones from Harry Potter's world in Universal.
We do. We've been to...
and I say they because it's her
it's me and my team.
And her 2 children.
It is.
And it's one of the first games that I think we played together. One of the first card games that we played together was Hogwarts Battle. I didn't get to read this, obviously, as a kid because it came out when I was not a kid. But I read them immediately, and then I waited for the next release for the year, and I'd wait for the next release to come out. Yeah. I remember going to Barnes & Noble and being like, the next book is out. I was working at Barnes & Noble when this series started coming out. I never liked this series.
Right,
because I got the fan side of the series clamoring for the next thing. I was
so clamoring for it, yeah.
I was sick of hearing about Harry Potter by the end of each and every one of my shifts. It's
a great series. I've read it many times. The lore she created, the whole world that she created was awesome. I know it's not a copycat. No, I love it. I love that books. I love the whole series.
It's basically Star Wars.
I love the whole series.
It's basically Star Wars.
I'm not even gonna go there.
Because you can't say anything about it. Anyway.
My number 2.
All right.
We're skipping, going right to number 2.
Number 2, here we go.
My number 2 is...
It better be a book about poop.
Not a kid's book.
It's a book about poop.
No.
It's number 2.
No. Is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. It is such a great book. Now, that being said... I skip some pages because it gets a little saucy.
Well, it's an HBO TV series.
Yeah, that part we couldn't even watch because
I've not been able to watch because it got super saucy.
Yeah, the first time I read it, I was like, "Oh, okay, skip that page." Like, I don't know what's going on, but skip that. But this was a great concept of this book. This whole. It's not even really a time travel book. It is. It is, but she got sucked back 200 years in the past.
Yep.
And is in the same place.
They're like a druidic.
Yeah.
Like a seer stone.
Yeah.
Shrine.
Circle of stones in Scotland, which there are lots of. I love the thought that she was a nurse in the wars. Yeah. And then suddenly sucked back 200 years where none of the medicinal practices that she knew even existed.
Right.
Her husband from the 40s was a direct descendant of basically the enemy in the whole book. Was very interesting.
I do like the concept. I would not be opposed to, because I like historical fiction, which I believe that this is.
This is, exactly.
It's historical fiction. I enjoy that usually, but It's one of those things where I tried to watch the show first, which I know
you can't.
People that read books, they don't do that. I get it. But when I found out how saucy it got, I didn't want to.
There are 9 books in this series. All of them are amazing. Mm-hmm. But the first one is my favorite. And then the second one comes when her daughter ends up time traveling back to... I mean, it's
Does she ever get... Oh, I guess I can't ask.
You can ask it.
Does she ever get back to the present?
She does. The end
and then does she
of the
go
first
back?
book. Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. See, at that point, if you went back, it means you like it.
Oh, yeah. She fell in love, and the love story...
She has a husband.
Yeah. That hadn't been born for 200 years.
No. See, in her timeline, she's married.
I know. This is the whole argument in the book. The argument the whole time. She was like, I can't get married to you. I'm actually married.
But she goes back.
She does go back?
It's
great.
That's a no-no.
Her husband in the 40s eventually passed away, and then she went back.
Okay. Well...
To the love of her life. The love story is great. No, the love story is great.
Her husband is the love of her life. That's why she got married.
She got married to Jamie Fraser in the 1600s.
No, she got married to her husband in the 1940s. That's the love of her life. If he passed, okay.
Well, so she got married in the 1940s, but then got sucked back 200 years. Got stuck there for quite a while. Fell in love, remarried.
I have questions.
Oh, it's really good. It's really good. And I have read it so many times.
Number 1.
You won't be too surprised. This was my best friend growing up. It's Anne of Green Gables.
Anne of Green Gables.
Lucy Maud Montgomery.
And with an E.
And with an E. Lucy Maud Montgomery. I will say that like one of the very first scenes when she thought Matthew hadn't come to the train station to pick her up. She thought she was going to be alone at the train station. And the descriptive words that Lucy Maud Montgomery uses to describe Prince Edward Island were so visual. So visual that I had these pictures in my head. There's a scene where it says, I wish I could have climbed up on the cherry tree when it was all white with bloom and moonshine. I pictured this
white with bloom and moonshine?
Yes. Not the alcohol.
Like moonshine?
No, like moon shining through the white cherry blossoms.
Got it.
Picture those cherry blossom trees that we have here in Wenatchee that are beautiful when they bloom.
Cherry blossoms are red.
No, they're not. They're white. The little pink. White blossoms. A little,
They're definitely pink.
They're not.
Cherry blossoms are pink.
Apple blossoms.
Apple blossoms are white.
I think you're backwards. Her descriptive words that she used throughout this whole book were so visual. I get it. It was super good. So Anne was like my best friend growing up. I imagined her all the time.
I love how you just went straight there from the imagery to...
It actually says, if you are imagining, you might as well something. You might as well be imagining something worthwhile.
Okay.
So that was me. That was like how I grew up. I was imagining I was with Anne of Green Gables. We were bosom buddies. I love that book. I read it so many times, over and over. And I would frequently finish it and pick it back up again.
Wow.
Like, ooh, all right, I want to read that again. But Lucy Maud Montgomery's writing style was really interesting to me because it was so descriptive.
That's interesting. I think when I have read books, they have been more focused on dialogue.
Yes.
And less on imagery.
Yes.
I mean, it gives you enough to get your juices flowing.
Yeah.
But then the rest is all conversational between the actors.
Absolutely. And most of the book is. But the imagery that she weaves through it is just so great.
I get bored when the author begins to wax eloquent about the surroundings. And I'm like...
Yes, but the way she's doing it is from the imagination of an 11-year-old girl.
Okay. I would be curious to find out how many guys
like Anne of Green Gables. Probably.
I'm sure there are a lot of them that like it, but
Right.
I wonder how many dudes have this as one of their favorite books of all time.
Probably not many.
Because it's written from the...
I mean, I read it when I was 11. Anne was 11. We were the best friends,
right.
you know.
I'm just curious. I don't know. I would be curious. That would be a question I would.
Later on in life, PBS came out with the series Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah.
And we watched every one.
I watched that.
And this series was, once again, like Gone with the Wind, so accurate to the book. It would literally follow chapters.
Cool.
And the words were, I could pick up and go, oh, I know that they're on page 26. Here we go. Like, it was so good.
Well, that is Jessie's top 10 books of all time and some of the series.
I have more, but you know.
Yeah, she's got more. So
I love to read.
Yeah,
I don't have a lot of time, but I do love to read when I do.
She does. And when she does read, the rest of the world dies. There is nothing else but the book. I have just experienced that since
when I read Crescent City after we came back from the cruise. Sam's like, are we going to do anything else? I'm like, nope. Gotta read. Gotta finish.
Well, thanks for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. If you have the fancy, put in a comment what your, I don't know, top 5 books are. How's that? Or your favorite book of all time. And Jessie will be reading them and responding to them, and I'll read them as well. And
Absolutely.
We will connect with you that way. But thanks for joining us. We will see you guys and gals on the flip side.
Bye.
Take care.